Often people want to start an Etsy business and they think through the product, what they're going to sell, their shop name, maybe the branding, colors, but a lot of the time they miss thinking about the supplies, the materials, and the equipment that they're going to need to run that business effectively and efficiently. Let's dive in and talk more about this. All right, guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the Handmade and Beyond podcast. Glad to be back with you guys as usual. Hopefully you guys are doing awesome, staying happy and healthy. I'm back with another really good episode to help you guys in your Etsy and handmade business. That's what these podcasts are all about. Today I'm coming at you from a little chilly Florida. If you're watching this video, I have a hoodie on, which is not normal. It actually is down in the 50s outside. I just walked the dogs and it is freezing for us Floridians because we are wimps when it comes to cold weather. If it gets below 60, it's time to break out the boots, the gloves, the hats, the scarves, anything that we need to keep warm. And we probably only have one sweatshirt or one coat because it just doesn't get cold too often. But I know you guys from the colder climates do not feel bad for me at all. So, so today's episode, I want to talk about really the supplies and the equipment that you should think about and should have if you're going to start an Etsy or an online business or handmade business. This is stuff that can really be invaluable to your business to help you operate more effectively, more efficiently, save time, save money, and all that good stuff. And some of this stuff may be obvious, maybe super obvious, where you're like, duh, LL, I know that. And then other stuff may not be as obvious. So I'm going to run through it. All this stuff, or some of this stuff is super necessary, and then some of this stuff is nice to have as your business grows and as you want to invest more in your business, as you guys should do over time. When you start making revenue, you want to invest some of that revenue back in your business, whether that is upgrading equipment, getting better tools, better supplies, additional equipment, things of that nature that will help you guys consistently grow and not just stay status quo. All right, so let's dive in. The first one is super obvious. This is going to be production equipment. If you are creating your own products, designing your own products, producing your own products, depending on your niche, there is going to be some type of equipment involved. For me, I have a clothing company. I do screen printing, so obviously screen printing equipment, printing press, screens, and then all the supplies that go into that as well. If you do furniture, I'm sure you need to invest in saws, drills, screw gun, all that stuff. So it really varies depending on your niche. If you outsource your production to a third party, which you are allowed to do if you still do the design elements, maybe you need to invest in equipment to do your designing, CAD software or computer software, things like that, depending on what niche you're in and how you have your production process set up. The next thing is going to be a computer. This is something that you obviously need to have. You're running an online business. You need a computer. I guess you could do it from like a library or something like that, but that is not going to be easy to do. And I recommend a computer over a tablet, just because you lose some functionality with a tablet, and it is sometimes a lot harder just to navigate and post listings with a tablet, especially if you don't have a mouse or a keyboard. That can be take a lot more time than just having a computer or a laptop. With a keyboard and with a mouse, you can do things a lot faster. So yes, you can do it with a tablet. I just wouldn't recommend it because it's not as easy to do. But yeah, whatever personal preference you have. You don't need anything expensive. You can operate perfectly fine with a $200 laptop. The next thing that you're going to need, especially if you don't outsource your shipping, is going to be a printer to print out your shipping labels, to print out your packing slips. Now, I recommend even going a little bit further than a printer. Most people already have a printer. That's fine, but you will start spending a lot of money on ink, especially. I recommend investing in a label printer, which you can get pretty inexpensively if you do it the right way. For example, you can get a label printer like a Dymo printer. Most people think that they are very expensive because the bigger ones are expensive. They're $300, $400, $500. But you can get a smaller one, a Dymo 450, for around $70, which is very inexpensive compared to the other ones. And then you can get like 3,000 labels for like $20. So you may be spending $50 a month on ink for your regular printer. This Dymo printer, you will not have to spend money on ink. You will just have to spend money on labels, which are much, much cheaper than operating with a regular printer. Now, if you have a small one, you will still need your regular printer to print out shipping labels, or packing slips, because they're going to be too small on the 450, but you can still do that on your regular printer and still save a lot of money on ink down the road, even doing it that way. All right, so the next thing that you really need to invest in is photography lights and setup. This is something that a lot of people miss when they take pictures. You need to have the lighting right, and it's going to be an ongoing process. You're going to get better at this the more that you guys do it. Your first set of pictures are probably going to be garbage like mine, and then you go back and learn and adjust. It's just one of those things that you have to continue to play around with. There's a lot of variables involved. Depending on your niche, depending on your products, will change how your setup is. So lighting is pretty inexpensive, and there's a couple of different tools that you can get. Probably down the road, you're going to end up having all of these just because you need to play around with your setup. So like a ring light, you can get pretty cheap now. They're like $15, $20. You can get umbrella lights. Again, you can get a kit for $40, $50 on Amazon. And then a light box if you have smaller stuff. You may need a light box as well, which will also help you create different color or white backgrounds. And they are, again, very inexpensive. So all three of those you could probably snag for less than $100. Do you need all three right away? Maybe not. I would play around with, think about your niche and what you have, and then invest in something so you can get your lighting right, or at least better to start, and you can adjust it down the road. Super, super important to selling your products is how your photography looks, and that usually comes down to lighting. All right, the next thing kind of along the same lines is a camera or a smartphone to be able to take your pictures. There are some differences. You may need to adjust some settings, and your phone may not have those settings, such as shutter speed, if you're having problems with your photos. If you do have a newer smartphone, chances are it does have those settings, or you can maybe get an app to enhance your camera to make your photography better. A lot of times you don't need to invest in a fancy camera. If you do, your pictures will probably be a little better, but it is not necessary. I've never had a fancy camera, and I've done just fine. But some people prefer that, and that's fine too. But if you're trying to cut costs down, and you have a newer iPhone, you should be fine taking your pictures. Again, you're going to have to play around with the lighting, and you may have to dive into some of your camera settings. This next item is just for me, a personal preference, and that's a second monitor. I have a second monitor hooked up to my laptop. Now, I don't always use it. I can take my laptop and work on it independently, but sometimes I want a bigger screen and multiple screens, especially if I'm designing stuff. Being able to move stuff or have stuff up on two screens, being able to move it from one screen to another, it makes me more efficient where I can have multiple things up and be able to see multiple things. Second monitors aren't that expensive anymore, but maybe down the road, you may want to invest in that. It'll just make things a little bit easier to see, and your workflow a little bit easier. Just a thought. The next important thing that I want to talk about is your packaging. So your packaging, such as boxes, mailers, different things like that, you want to make sure that you have ready to go. You want to try and be consistent and this is a little bit easier if you're selling the same thing or the same size thing, having consistent packaging where everything doesn't look wonky, and same color packaging, same color inserts, same color mailers. That can kind of tie into your branding too. You can also get free USPS priority boxes and flat rate boxes if you want some free materials and you're going to be shipping your items out that way. If your items are over a pound, you have to ship it out priority anyways. So you may just be able to use those boxes that USPS provides and won't have to buy boxes, which will save you a ton of money. So think about how you want to do that. And then also if you have regular boxes and you need to adjust the size of the boxes because you don't want to ship an item that's too small and pay for the extra shipping cost with a bigger box, you can look up a box or get a box carton resizer, if I could say that word, or those combination of words, which is a really cool tool where you can resize boxes and make them smaller, hence being able to not pay as much to be able to ship stuff in a box that fits the item. And that may come in handy if you sell different sized items and you're always on the hunt for boxes. And along the same lines as packaging material is, of course, tape gun. With tape, which will make it a little bit easier than having just a roll of tape and trying to find the edge all the time. A tape gun does come in handy, especially if you're shipping stuff that's in boxes. Now, if you use mailers, you probably won't need a tape gun. But that, again, it's dependent upon what you guys are selling. Now, keep in mind, too, if you're a new seller, you cannot use duct tape on packaging to ship USPS. It is prohibited. They will not ship it. So make sure you're using clear tape or recommended tape via USPS. I know a lot of people have duct tape lying around. Don't use it on your packages. Use it for your front bumper if necessary, but not on your packages. So just a heads up there. The next thing I want to talk about is if you are shipping stuff in boxes, you're going to need a tape measure. If you have an iPhone, there is a measuring app on there, which is super cool. So you just type in measure and it'll come up. Also has a scale too if you need to make sure something's level. But pretty cool tool. So you don't necessarily need a tape, the old school tape measure, but you can have one. But most people have their phone on them, so you can just use that as well to get the different dimensions, especially if you're shipping different sized boxes. You also want to make sure to have, with packaging materials, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but bubble wrap, box filler, especially if you're shipping fragile items such as, china or mugs. You want to make sure that you are packaging that stuff really, really good, because the last thing that you want to do is for customers to get it and it's broken. There's no easier way than to get a bad review than to ship something that breaks because your packaging is poor. Chances are, it may happen at some point anyways, but people can tell if the packaging is poor. I mean, if they're getting a mug and there's literally no packaging inside and it's broken, that's going to tick your customer off because they know that you just threw it in the box and shipped it and didn't put any care into packaging it. So make sure that you are putting care into your packaging and getting that process down. You also want to make sure to have thank you card inserts, whether you're doing that on the packing slip or you have a separate slip that you put in there. You can throw in a business card. You can do something else that you print out. A lot of times you can get business cards super, super cheap. Put a little thank you on there, maybe a discount coupon code for future orders is always a good thing to do. You always want to make sure you're thanking your customers and showing your appreciation because they are super important, and returning customers are even more important than that. That will really help your business grow. The next piece of equipment is a scale, and this is something you can get super cheap on Amazon. Again, if you're shipping a lot of different stuff, you're going to need to weigh that stuff. You want to make sure that you have the correct weight. You don't want to have any problems when you're shipping stuff out where items get returned or you get charged additional, or worst case, your customer gets charged to pick the item up because you didn't pay enough for the shipping, the postage costs. So make sure you're investing in a scale to weigh your items so you get the correct weight, the correct dimensions and all that stuff before you ship the item. The last thing that you want to make sure, or the last thing that you could invest in, this isn't a necessary thing, but it's a nice to have thing, is maybe a computer backup battery, which they sell if you have a laptop and you want to go work elsewhere. Coffee shop. Yeah, you can take your computer plug, but some places don't have plug-ins. I ran into this several times, and then I finally invested in a computer battery backup, which is pretty cool. It plugs right into your laptop, and you get a full charge off of it, or at least a couple hours of additional battery life, and it's pretty neat to have. And I almost forgot as well, along those same lines as a computer external hard drive to back up all your stuff. Some people do it to the cloud, but you can also invest in a hard drive. Again, these things used to cost a fortune. They've come way down in price, and it will only help alleviate problems down the road. Backing up all your stuff in case your computer crashes is going to be really, really important, especially if you design your own stuff and you have a lot of stuff that's irreplaceable. Make sure you're backing that stuff up with an external hard drive. But that's it, guys. That is my laundry list of supplies and equipment that I think is important to have when running an Etsy business. Again, most of this stuff is a must-have. Some of it is a nice-to-have. Determine where you're at in your business and what you want to invest in first. But the main thing that you should always be doing is investing in equipment and supplies that will make your business better. It'll make you more efficient so you can save time and put more of that time and energy back into your business to grow. So hopefully that helps you guys out. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, wherever you're listening, please leave a 5-star review. It helps me reach more people, and it helps me continue to be able to help those people start, build, and grow their Etsy businesses, because that's what this podcast is all about. I'll be back very, very soon with another awesome episode for you guys. Have an amazing rest of your day.